I have drawn many eyes in my time as a growing artist, but nothing compares to how badly I drew this one. And I even had the nerve to take a video of it, edit it, and post it as a tutorial on my YouTube channel. About a year ago, I made a video titled How to Draw an Eye, and it was, to say the least, arguably the worst tutorial I have ever uploaded. There was just too much wrong with the final drawing, and I knew that, yet I still decided to upload it anyway. And since that day, I've been regretting it and wanting to recreate that video ever since, so that is this video. So I decided to redo that video, and I think the results came out a lot better the second time around. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to actually draw an eye and highlight all the things that I did wrong in my first tutorial and compare them to the results in my final tutorial. I think you can already see what's different about these two drawings at first glance. To me, the most obvious thing is the original sketch. I completely rushed it, and from that moment, the drawing was ruined. For example, the iris, not even a circle. So for your sketch, you're going to want to start by drawing an almond shape like I did, and then add an extra line at the bottom as the waterline and two lines separating the eyeball from the corner of the eye. Basically, just copy the general shapes you see in your reference photo, and then of course the iris and the pupil right in the center. Try to get them as centered as possible. I also drew a line at the top of the eye to indicate where the eyelashes are. Once you got your sketch done, you're going to start by focusing on the iris. Now this part is a little bit tricky, and it is the focus of the drawing, so you're going to want to take as much time as you need on this part as possible. You're going to want to start by coloring the pupil completely black. Sometimes you'll find that the pupil has some highlights in your reference, but mine didn't, so I just colored it in with black only. Up next, I started by making little lines towards the center of the eye with white, and then basically went over the entire thing lightly with a light blue color pencil. And went around the iris with my black color pencil in a circular motion. I did this around the entire thing except where I blocked in place for highlight. Next, I took a darker shade of blue and went over the black outline and faded it out towards the center. Next, I took a lighter shade of green and blocked in all the areas where I can see green in my reference. The rest of this process is basically just taking all the different colors visible in your reference and replicating them onto your drawing. The only thing you need to keep in mind for this part is to color in one direction, which is towards the pupil, and avoid coloring over highlighted areas or areas that you've already colored in white. Also, try not to add highlights towards the top of the eye, as this part is normally a bit darker than the rest of the eye in most reference pictures that you find. Now, focusing on the block I left open on the iris, this is going to be the highlight of the eye. Most times you find that people just color in this part white, almost like I did in my first tutorial, but this kind of takes away from how real your final drawing ends up looking in the end. This part needs just as much time and effort as the rest of the eye, and it's important to focus on it. The first thing I did was add in all the dark lines with a fine liner. You can also use a black pencil if you prefer. You can see the reference is mostly blue in the highlighted parts, so I added most of the blue parts in with a colored pencil and blended it all together with a white pencil. Basically, all the more blue parts I pressed harder in those areas, and all the less blue parts I kind of only went over them lightly so that the whites would kind of even everything out, if that makes sense. Next is the white part of the eye. The one big mistake I made in my first tutorial is add too much white in the white of the eye. Basically, I didn't add as many details and shadows as I should have. In my current reference, I can see at least 2 more colors in the eye, red and grey, so I made sure not to ignore those in my final drawing. You'll find that there's a lot more white closer to the iris and more darker colors in the corner, so I tried to emphasize that as much as possible, and you can see that I add more white where the highlight kind of goes in the eye, so it looks more like not only is the iris being highlighted but the eyeball itself as well. Then I repeated the same process on the other side. To color in the skin, I started by roughly blocking in the lightest parts of the skin with white. Next, I focus on the darker areas above the eye. I found that the darker parts of my reference appeared to have more intense warm tones like red and orange, so I copied them accordingly. Also something I didn't do in my first tutorial. I also added some cooler tones like greys and purples to the darkest areas. When I felt I was happy with the top eyelid, I carefully drew on the eyelashes. And to blend the dark parts to the lightest parts, I used a peach color pencil as the mid-tone to kind of blend